followed productivity expert on his channel. He has a series of book club reviews that go over his recommended self-development books or books that he considers to be life-changing. So I decided to put some of those to the test and pick 3 to cover in today's video. So without further ado, let's get started, and thank you to Ali Abdul, or tag him below, for the inspiration for today's video. The first book on Ali's recommended list is Atomic Habits by James Clear, and I'm going to read you the blurb for this one so you don't end up with a 15-minute ramble. People think that when you want to change your life, you need to think big. But world-renowned habits expert James Clear has discovered another way. He knows that real change comes from the compound effect of hundreds of small decisions. Doing 2 push-ups a day, waking up 5 minutes early, or holding a single short phone call. He calls them atomic habits. In this groundbreaking book, Clear reveals exactly how these minuscule changes can grow into such life-altering outcomes. He uncovers a handful of simple life hacks, the forgotten art of habit stacking, the unexpected power of the 2-minute rule, or the trick to entering the Goldilocks zone, and delves into cutting-edge psychology and neuroscience to explain why they matter. Along the way, he tells inspiring stories of Olympic gold medalists, leading CEOs, and distinguished scientists who have used the science of tiny habits to stay productive, motivated, and happy. I love the message that this book promotes, that if you change something by as little as 1%, eventually and over time it will become a really big change. I definitely am guilty in my own journey of trying to adapt habits into my life, but not really having a process or a way of making them stick long term, and then I get really frustrated or disappointed when inevitably they kind of fall out of my life and I just carry on doing what I've always been doing. I found this really useful to read about and learn these kind of tips and tricks to make it more effective. James goes on to explain ways that you can try and make these habits stick, and some of them are covered in the blurb. So the idea of habit stacking, so you add the habit that you want to introduce into your life on top of a habit that you already have. For example, you read every morning, you can add an extra habit on top. So when you sit down to read, maybe 10 minutes before then you could do a little meditation if that's the habit you wanted to introduce. Or this idea of incentivizing yourself to do work by rewarding yourself at the end. You do something that you need to do, and then afterwards you can do something that you want to do. Just any way to try and make these habits become natural in your everyday life. I find everything in this book to be really useful and interesting, and also very easy to adapt into your own life, which I think is absolutely crucial. So this 2-minute rule, where you work for 2 minutes on something that you're struggling to get going on, and then you usually find after these 2 minutes that you want to carry on working, is just a good way to kind of kickstart your brain. I personally think that this book is suitable for anybody at any stage of their personal growth journey. I think there's a lot to learn in the book, but it doesn't feel overwhelming because they're all broken down into very manageable chunks, and I think that is the whole point of the book, is that they're very easy to adapt into your life. Next up, had to say about the blurb of this book. For David Goggins, childhood was a nightmare. Poverty, prejudice, and physical abuse coloured his days and haunted his nights. But through self-discipline, mental toughness, and hard work, Goggins transformed himself from a depressed, overweight young man with no future into a US Armed Forces icon and one of the world's top endurance athletes. The only man in history to complete elite training as a Navy SEAL, Army Ranger, and Air Force Tactical Air Controller, he went on to set records in numerous endurance events, inspiring Outside Magazine to name him the fittest real man in America. In Can't Hurt Me, he shares his astonishing life story and reveals that most of us tap into only 40% of our capabilities. Goggins calls this the 40% rule, and his story illuminates a path that anyone can follow to push past pain, demolish fear, and reach their full potential. I mean, as you can probably tell from the blurb of the book, David Goggins is an absolute machine. And at the time I read this book, I was at a point in my self-development journey where I was really looking for a book with an edge, something that wasn't all just the same, very flowery, happy language. And my word, did I get it with this book. It does not hold back in its language and content. There are actually two versions of this book. There is the one I read, which is the explicit, doesn't hold punches book, and then there's actually also a clean version for anybody that would rather the expletives were removed from the content. If you're looking for a book that will mollycoddle you or hold your hand through your development, I think you might be looking in the wrong place for this one. But if you're looking for hard-hitting, straight-talking advice about how to become more resilient, then this is definitely the type of book for you. It very much goes right to the issue and forces you to address what you've probably been hiding, covering up, avoiding for a long time, and it's driven you to the point that you're currently at. And I think maybe there are some things that you don't even realise you're covering up, but this book really helps you kind of go straight to the heart of it. And it's fascinating the way he approaches his own life, and then the kind of action points that he asks from the reader as well. Another thing I love about the book is that it is not just a tool for self-development and growth, but it's also an autobiography of David's traumatic childhood and how he kind of threw away the man he was to become the man he wanted to be. I'm not gonna lie, I got so invested in David's journey that I actually had dreams while I was reading the book that I was a Navy SEAL. That's how much the book gets under your skin and apparently makes you believe you can be something that is wildly out of reach. But maybe, I guess that is the point of the book. But you really do get this idea, and you really do see the strength of this man and what he's achieved, and it really does empower you to see, well, if he can push himself far beyond what anybody really thought the human body was capable of, then you can do it too. You can push yourself beyond what you thought was possible for yourself. And I do, even now, even years later, when I'm working out and I feel myself faltering, I always think of David Goggins and how he says when you feel like you can't dig deep and find that strength anymore, that's exactly when you do need to dig deep, and you will find that you do have the energy, the motivation, the desire to keep going. You just have to push past that level, but it is there and everybody has it. You just have to know to activate it. And now for the final book. Technically, this was goes over the making of the book, and I guess, yeah, getting the content together and then the writing process itself. As you can probably tell by the title, Feel Good Productivity is all about kind of different ways that you can tap into becoming more productive, but in a more fun way. It's all about putting life back into work and that desire to want to achieve things, whether that's inside work or in your personal life. I very recently covered this book in a wrap-up video, so I will leave either something here or a link in the description for you to go check it out. So I'm not going to talk about it too much. Feel free to subscribe while you're at it with that other video. But I love the way this book is written. I think Ali has a really clear, direct way of covering the points, but in a very light-hearted, humorous way. There are some parts in the book that genuinely made me laugh out loud, which I don't usually find in self-development books, but it's a really nice touch when it's all about kind of a more fun approach to finding your flow. The thing that I love most about the book is his approach, in that it's not a one-size-fits-all solution to improving your productivity. He includes several experiments in each section of the book, and each one is aimed at helping you uncover something that will work for your life. So he recommends that you try all of the experiments listed, with the idea that you get rid of the ones that don't work for you and are left with the one habit or the one action, something that you can do that is actually going to help you in the future. And I really like that. I don't think I've seen that before, where you get multiple options to explore. It's a very fresh take, and I appreciate that a lot. But like I said, for the full review, you'll have to check out my March wrap-up. But I highly recommend this one for anybody that's struggling to find their flow and feels like they're stuck in a bit of a rut. I know for me, it definitely helped me to reframe and see things in a different